In the dead of night, a final digital whisper fades into oblivion. At 12:59 a.m. on January 5, 2022, 17-year-old Zion Foster sent a simple message to her boyfriend, Vertez Gonzalez, OMW. These 3 letters, "On my way," now stand as a haunting epitaph to a promise forever broken. We delve into the chilling disappearance of Zion Foster, a case shrouded in lies, betrayal, and the agonizing search for truth. Sierra Milton, a mother of 6, awoke on January 5, 2022, with a growing sense of dread. Her eldest daughter, Zion, a vibrant senior at East Detroit High School, had not returned home. Zion, who had just celebrated her 17th birthday in November, was full of dreams and aspirations. This absence felt different, a silence that screamed louder than any argument. The previous evening, Zion had finished her shift at Detroit Wing Company and asked permission to spend the evening with her favorite cousin, Jalen Brer. Sierra, trusting their close bond, agreed, watching her daughter leave just before 11 p.m. That image would forever be seared into her memory, a constant reminder of the last time she saw her daughter alive. The following day, Sierra's anguish escalated into full-blown panic. Vertez Gonzalez, Zion's boyfriend, contacted her, desperately seeking news of Zion, as he couldn't reach her. Zion's last message, sent at 12:59 a.m., was a laconic OMW, but she never arrived. Calls to her cell phone went straight to voicemail. Messages remained unanswered, lost in the digital void. Adding to the growing unease, Jalen Brer denied seeing Zion that night. He questioned how often Zion claimed to spend time with him, dismissing her statements as sneaky and dangerous lies. Why would Zion fabricate an evening spent at his house? Jalen suggested she was using him as a cover to meet someone else nearby, a sinister implication that deepened the mystery. GPS tracking of Zion's cell phone placed her right in front of Jalen's house at 11:24 p.m. Vertez, fueled by insecurity, had even captured a screenshot of the location. Jalen suggested that Zion might know someone else on the street, using him as an alibi. He urged Sierra to contact the police, but requested to be excluded from the investigation, a request that raised immediate suspicion. Vertez, unwilling to let it go, bombarded Jalen with messages, confronting him with the damning screenshot. Jalen responded by sending a video from his Ring camera system, claiming it showed no trace of Zion. She was never here, he insisted, his words echoing in the face of mounting evidence. The East Point police initially dismissed Zion's disappearance as a runaway case, citing her previous incidents. "We're treating this as a runaway," they told Sierra, a phrase that felt like a cruel abandonment. Feeling betrayed by law enforcement, Sierra took matters into her own hands, launching a desperate search with the help of family and friends. Flyers, rallies, and appeals to the media became her weapons in the fight for her daughter's life. "We need your eyes. The police need your help," she pleaded, her voice raw with desperation. Meanwhile, officers finally interviewed Jalen Brer, Zion's favorite cousin, who was actually her former step-cousin, the son of Sierra's ex-husband. At 23, Jalen was a father of 2 and in a stable relationship with Katrina. Sierra had always believed that Zion and Jalen shared a close bond. Jalen, however, denied any recent contact. He claimed he had last seen Zion in May 2021, insisting that Sierra and Vertez were falsely accusing him of involvement. He offered to show them the Ring camera footage, which Sierra examined, noting suspicious gaps in the recordings for the night of January 4th, as if segments had been deliberately deleted. But she was never here, Jaylen reiterated, his voice unwavering. The East Point police found nothing suspicious during the initial search of the house. "Dragged into this circus," Jaylen spat, his voice dripping with indignation. "Over a 17-year-old cousin I barely know. I went to work, came back, got gas. This girl was never in my house. She's a known runaway, done it 4 times. Her mom knows this, but she's playing some twisted game, making me incredibly uncomfortable." He scoffed. "Runaway? Yeah, you'd think you'd know that. Not saying you're wrong, just assume she'd tell you the damn truth. Appreciate it. All right, enjoy your night." Jaylen might have fooled the East Point police, but not Sierra Milton. She knew her daughter's habits, who she left with, had even greeted Jaylen in her driveway. "He said he hadn't seen her in 3 years, which is a blatant lie," she seethed. "He hugged me in my own driveway." The truth, however, was about to unravel. At 11:15 p.m. on January 4th, a white sedan, Jaylen's car, was captured on a neighbor's doorbell camera pulling into his driveway. 2 figures emerged, a man and a woman. Jaylen had dropped Katrina off at work for her midnight shift, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. The woman entering his house at 11:15 p.m. couldn't have been her. Phone location data would later confirm it: Jaylen Brer and Zion Foster. The camera, however, didn't capture Zion leaving. At 1:41 a.m., the same camera captured Jaylen pulling his car out, backing it in, trunk facing the backyard. Minutes later, he drove off, returning less than 10 minutes after. Search warrants were obtained for the house and car. The house yielded nothing, but the car's contents, meticulously examined, offered no immediate answers. Until the cadaver dogs arrived. They pinpointed the trunk of Jaylen's car, their barks a chilling confirmation of the unspeakable. On January 19th, Jaylen, accompanied by a lawyer friend, voluntarily sat down with detectives. He admitted to lying about seeing Zion, offering a truthful account that was far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. "We smoked some weed, watched TV," he recounted casually. She talked about how her relationship with her mom was better, about her boyfriend, prom, getting an apartment. He claimed the marijuana made Zion sleepy. He saw her head tilt back, as if for a nap on the couch. He went to the other room for a drink. "I came back and she was slumped," he said. "I thought she was tired. I checked on her 20 minutes later and she wasn't responding." Jaylen claimed Zion's pulse was faint, then non-existent. She had died on his couch. Instead of calling 911, he panicked, his actions driven by a self-preservation instinct that overshadowed any sense of humanity. Her heartbeat was fading, her breathing stopped. I freaked out. It looked terrible, very bad. I didn't know what to do. I put her in my trunk, drove to Highland Park and put her in a trash can. Detectives pressed him. How did he know she was dead? He claimed she abruptly stopped breathing. Her head slumped. You just hide or whatever, from lead. And then you start shaking her. She doesn't wake up. You check her pulse. You see she's not breathing. So you freaked out, a detective pressed. And this whole time you thought she was dead? Yeah, definitely. You know the difference between dead and alive, right? She wasn't breathing. I couldn't feel her heartbeat. I'd say she was dead, definitely. I want you to show us the dumpster, a detective said. We need to recover her. Absolutely, Jaylen agreed. He led them to Highland Park, claiming he'd left Zion's body weeks prior. He said she died around 1 a.m. after 2 hours at his place. Cell phone records showed her device dropped off the network at 1:15 a.m., coinciding with her last messages to Vertez. Jaylen claimed he hadn't deleted any data. but a full factory reset was found 2 days later. However, phone data placed him at the dumpsters at 1:48 a.m. She was in the dumpster to the right, he said, but there was no sign of her. "I'm going to walk up to you," a detective said. "You opened it." "It was already open." "Did you close it?" "Yes." "Where did you park?" "Right in front of it." He said, "My baby just died, and he threw her in a dumpster like she was trash," a detective recounted, the words heavy with disbelief and disgust. In a follow-up interview, inconsistencies emerged. Jaylen now claimed they'd taken acid. Her reaction, he said, caused her heart to stop. Another flimsy excuse, another layer of deceit. Detectives tried to leverage this, hoping for a confession. "Psychedelics, okay, I think that killed her," a detective said. "Did you have a momentary lapse, didn't know what you were doing?" "No." "The problem with those drugs is you don't know what you're doing. That's why people take them, right? Did you do something when you were on acid?" The search for Zion's body continues, a desperate attempt to bring closure to a grieving family. The truth, however, remains elusive, buried beneath layers of lies and self-preservation. In the shadows of Detroit, a young life vanished, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a community gripped by fear. This is the story of Zion Foster, a case that exposes the dark underbelly of human nature and the devastating consequences of deceit. Prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of a true crime narrative that will challenge your perceptions and leave you questioning the depths of depravity. "Look, I'm not saying it's okay," Jaylen stammered, his voice a desperate plea for understanding. "But completely, I just don't know if the effect for her was positive or negative. It does a lot to your brain, you know." His words, a feeble attempt to justify the unthinkable, reveal a chilling detachment from the gravity of the situation. The detective, a seasoned veteran of countless investigations, responded with calculated calm. "Yeah, it does a lot," he conceded, a strategic pause hanging in the air. "It all makes sense to me now. You understand that, right? I'm sitting here trying to figure out how this nice young guy, Jaylen, could ever hurt anybody. But it makes sense now. That wasn't you. That wasn't Jaylen at that point, was it? If you did something under the influence, I need to know that. That's a big difference, and I can understand that." This carefully constructed narrative, designed to elicit a confession, ultimately failed. Without Zion's body, without concrete evidence, the detectives' hands were tied. Jaylen was arrested, but only on a single charge, lying to the police. In a subsequent interview, audio recorded for posterity, Jaylen's story morphed once again. He recanted his earlier claims about LSD, attempting to distance himself from the events of that fateful night. That part wasn't true, he declared, further muddying the waters of truth. Details shifted, inconsistencies emerged. Zion was no longer on the couch, but on the floor. He claimed police pressure forced him to fabricate a more elaborate story. Like, well, I left that out, about the LSD. But yeah, we both took a hit of LSD and it must have hit her different, hit her wrong. The detective, his skepticism palpable, pressed for clarity. "Did you say it, or are you telling me—" The truth, it seemed, was a slippery eel, constantly evading capture. As Jaylen's lies continued to unravel, a massive search operation was launched. Highland Park's garbage collection routes were meticulously traced to specific landfill sectors. A Herculean task, sifting through weeks' worth of Detroit area trash. An estimated 8-week project commenced. Dozens of volunteers, masked and suited, aided by heavy machinery, meticulously combed through layers, seeking any trace of Zion. While the search for Zion continued, Jaylen faced the consequences of his lies. He was sentenced to up to 4 years for deceiving law enforcement, a mere fraction of the punishment he deserved if he were responsible for Zion's disappearance. At his sentencing, Jaylen pleaded for leniency. "I turned myself in. Yes, I lied, but I wasn't in the right state of mind. There was no way to prepare for this. I was scared. I don't know how she passed. One minute she was fine, the next, she was dead. I didn't cause it. I reacted stupidly out of fear and panic." The judge, unmoved by his crocodile tears, challenged his narrative. "You think she dies, and you dispose of the body like that?" he asked, incredulous. "That was your choice?" "I didn't know what to do," Jaylen replied, his voice laced with desperation. "I sat for 10 minutes thinking, what do I do? My kids are upstairs. We just got this place after struggling for 2 years. Everything is falling apart. I would have called her mom. Nobody would be in this situation. At least they'd know what happened. Have some peace." Jaylen received 23 months, a sentence that felt woefully inadequate to those who knew and loved Zion. Even behind bars, Jaylen's attempts to control the narrative continued. His monitored calls home to Katrina and family were revealing, filled with coded language and thinly veiled inquiries about the landfill search. He had a contraband cell phone, exchanging thousands of messages with Katrina. Repeatedly he asked, "Anything major happen?" A thinly veiled inquiry about the landfill search. "The most logical thing is that there's nothing major, no new developments," he rationalized. "And that's the end of it." "Keep your head up, baby," he told Katrina. "Stop talking." Jaylen's anxiety about the search was telling. If he were innocent, he'd want Zion found to clear his name. But he repeatedly expressed relief at the lack of progress. Jaylen served just over 9 months, released early through a 90-day boot camp program, a military-style program rewarding good behavior with early release. Nearly a year, and Zion was still missing. No murder indictment. The prime suspect was back home. Jaylen's freedom, however, was short-lived. On June 13, 2023, after an 18-month investigation, the Detroit police obtained a murder warrant. The 24-year-old was charged with second-degree murder and evidence tampering. 2 more cell phones were seized. Despite the factory reset, investigators retrieved cloud-stored data. On January 7th, 3 days after dumping Zion's body, Jaylen's Google searches, "Are garbage trucks also compactors? What is the force of a garbage truck compactor? How do police get your phone history? How do you know if police are watching you?" In the months before, he had searched disturbing pornographic content with cousin and step-cousin. Experts retrieved violent and graphic video results. The digital breadcrumbs, meticulously collected, painted a damning picture of a man consumed by dark desires and a desperate attempt to cover his tracks. At a preliminary hearing, a new and disturbing defense strategy emerged. Vertes Gonzalez testified that Zion took regular medication for epilepsy. He said she had seizures, worsening without medication. The defense pivoted, desperately grasping at a new narrative. Vertes Gonzalez testified that Zion had mentioned taking medication for epilepsy, recalling an episode he believed might have been a seizure. "Have you ever seen her have a seizure?" the prosecutor asked. I think so, yes," Vertes replied. "Explain what happened." "Just like a little pass out, like that's it. Quick little, she would pass out." Was she foaming at the mouth? No. Was she shaking uncontrollably? No, just passed out, for a quick second. Sierra Milton, however, whose youngest child had been diagnosed with seizures, vehemently denied this. Zion had never suffered a seizure. Medical records, hundreds of pages, supported Sierra's assertion. Nonetheless, Jaylen Brayer's defense presented a new possibility. Perhaps Zion's death was a sudden, unforeseen medical event. There are only two people who can say exactly what happened inside that house that night, the prosecutor stated. One is Zion, and she is gone. The other is the defendant, and you will hear that nearly every time he spoke, his story changed. And although he got rid of Zion's body, he left behind a trail of damning digital evidence that shows the circumstances all lead to one explanation. He murdered her. The defense countered, suggesting a tragic accident. She had a history of seizures and seizure medication. They smoked marijuana. Jaylen told police she had shallow breathing and a faint heartbeat. He checked and she was dead. He panicked, fearing he'd be blamed for drug use. Zion's phone disconnected at 1:15 a.m., the night she vanished. But her previous phone, safely at home, held a digital time capsule. Sierra handed it to the police. Thousands of messages between Zion and Jaylen, ranging from unsettling to deeply inappropriate. Wayne County Assistant Prosecutor Ryan Elsey described the texts as pervasive, compliments on her intelligence and looks, probing immature advances. He suggested others thought they were a couple, claimed Katrina was jealous, and bragged about his ability to get women. He even called himself a god. Elsey argued Jaylen had been grooming Zion for years, fantasizing about her. On January 4th, he acted on those impulses, a twisted motive for murder. The jury learned Jaylen had discovered Katrina's third pregnancy the day he brought Zion to his house. Messages showed he lied to Katrina about his whereabouts. She, suffering nausea and hot spells, had gone to the ER earlier that day. Hours later, the nausea returned. "I think I need to come home," she messaged at 1:25 a.m. "I don't feel good" at 1:26 a.m. "My stomach hurts, I feel sick and keep getting hot and cold." Jaylen's response, "You can make it, baby." He finally picked her up at nearly 3 a.m. Katrina noticed a deep scratch on his collarbone. He blamed the cat, but she found it suspicious. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Jaylen didn't testify. The prosecution called 32 witnesses, the defense none. The case was circumstantial but compelling. A forensic anthropologist testified Zion's only condition that could cause her death was asthma, but an asthma attack displays completely opposite symptoms than what Jaylen described. Werther repeated Zion's claims of seizures, admitting she liked to exaggerate. He brought her to his house late at night, behind the back of his pregnant girlfriend, and she leaves in his trunk with an unexplained gash on his collarbone. "What do you think happened?" the prosecutor asked. "She died of a seizure." The defense argued Jaylen panicked over drug possession. "Use your common sense. You don't get federal prison for marijuana." Werther himself confirmed Zion's claims of seizures and the medication she used for them. Sierra Milton and Zion's family waited for the jury. In just 30 minutes, the jury returned, guilty on all counts. Jaylen maintained his innocence. "I know the picture is painted," he said, "but Zion wasn't hurt at all. I know my apologies mean nothing." Judge Donald Knapp outlined Jaylen's refusal to take responsibility, his lies, manipulation, and the destruction of evidence. It's unlikely he will ever be rehabilitated. Jaylen was sentenced to 30 to 90 years for murder and 5 to 10 for evidence tampering, to be served consecutively. "My body was trembling," Sierra said, "but when it was read, I was so happy. They saw she was loved, fought for, justice." Zion Foster's body was never recovered. After a nearly 6-month search of the landfill, the searches ended. Jaylen remains in a Wayne County intake facility. The story of Zion Foster is a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It is a call to be vigilant, to protect the vulnerable, and to demand justice for those who have been silenced. If you're fascinated by the dark depths of the criminal mind and want to delve deeper into cases like this, I invite you to subscribe to our channel, Into the Crime Depths. Here, we explore the most complex and unsettling stories, seeking to shed light on the motivations behind the most heinous crimes. Don't forget to leave a like and activate the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content.